Once upon a time there was a poor orphan girl named Mira, standing barefoot in the middle of a dusty compound, while the people who were supposed to love her decided her future like she was a bag of rice. Uncle Bado slammed his palm on the wooden table. "Mira," he said, his voice hard, "you will marry that poor man. And you will marry him without question." The air went silent. Mira swallowed, her fingers trembling around the metal basin she was holding. "Uncle, who is he?" she whispered. Answered hissed loudly, tying her wrapper tighter around her waist. "Look at this girl, oh. You, an orphan, asking questions. You should be thanking us you will not die in this house." Her cousins, Lita and Noma, leaned by the doorway, smirking. "That man from the edge of the village," Lita added, "the one who limps and wears the same shirt every day." Noma giggled. "The one children call Beggar Jidena. Myra's heart dropped. She had seen him before, quiet, dusty, leaning on a wooden stick while people brushed past him like he was invisible. Uncle Bado leaned forward, his eyes cold. "He has nothing. No land, no house, no cattle. But he is willing to take you, just as you are. No bride price. No ceremony. No shame to our name." The words cut deeper than any slap. Myra's lips parted. "Uncle, why me?" He stared at her with a cruel smile. "Because, Myra," he said slowly, "a girl like you should be grateful anyone wants you at all." And just like that, her life was pushed toward a man the whole village called poor. A man she did not know was hiding a secret bigger than the hills that surrounded them. The morning after the announcement, Myra woke before the first rooster crowed, as she always did. Her life in Uncle Bato's house had taught her one thing: silence and speed kept you alive. She tied her faded wrapper around her chest, stepped quietly over the cracked floor, and slipped outside into the cold dawn. The compound was still dark, the air smelling of firewood and early harmattan dust. She fetched water from the clay pot, washed her face, and headed straight to the backyard to sweep before anyone else woke up. But that morning, something felt different. Not in the air, no. In her chest. A heaviness that refused to leave. As she swept, Aunt Soda's harsh voice pierced the quiet like a knife. "Lazy girl. You didn't finish washing the plates last night. Now go and scrub them before you start sweeping my compound." Myra bowed her head. "Yes, Aunt." And after that, Sod added, "You will wash Lita's clothes. She must look fresh today. A man is coming from the next town to see her." Lita stepped out, twisting her waist playfully. "Shebi, you heard that. Some of us still have value." Noma joined, giggling. "Unlike you, marrying a man who can't even buy soap." Myra said nothing. She had learned long ago that words could be used against her more than silence. As the sun rose slowly, the compound came alive with noise, Sod shouting, Lita humming, Noma complaining, Bado dragging his wooden chair outside. Myra washed plates, scrubbed clothes, swept rooms, and fetched water until her fingers turned wrinkled and white. Yet the entire time, one thought stayed in her mind. Why me? Why must I marry him? Later that afternoon, Myra was sent to fetch pepper from the market. As she walked past the village square, she saw him again, Jidena. He sat under a mango tree, leaning on his wooden stick, wearing the same brown shirt and old trousers the village had mocked him for since he arrived months ago. Children played nearby, throwing small stones in the sand. Two boys pointed at him. See him. The poor man who sleeps behind the abandoned hut. He can't even walk properly. One boy mimicked a limp. The others laughed. Jidena looked at them only briefly before returning to his quiet sweeping of the sand with a small branch. He didn't shout. He didn't complain. He just sat, calm, silent, almost peaceful. But Myra saw something different today. The way he held himself. The way he breathed. The way his eyes moved, slow, observant, thoughtful. Not like a beggar. Like someone hiding from the world. He suddenly lifted his head and looked at her. Their eyes met. Not the quick glance of a stranger. Not the curious look of a man admiring a girl. But something deeper, like recognition. She quickly looked away and hurried toward the paper seller. Her heart beat faster than it should have. When Mira returned home, Uncle Bado was already waiting for her at the gate, his face hard. Where did you go? Why were you seen near the square? Do you want people thinking you are parading yourself like a widow? Mira lowered her gaze. Uncle, I only went to. Silence, he barked. Aunt Sod came out, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Bado, leave the girl. Let her roam small before the wedding. Once she enters Jidena's house, she wants her freedom to walk around again. Lita and Noma burst into laughter behind her. Mira felt the words strike her like stones. Jidena's house. What house? He barely had a hut. She had seen him sleeping outside once. Uncle Bado cleared his throat. The wedding is in 1 week. The village elders already know. They said since the man is humble and willing to take her without making noise, we should not waste time. Myra's throat tightened. 1 week. Yes, Aunt Sod said sharply. Unless you think anybody else is coming to marry you. Mira shut her eyes briefly. This wasn't a marriage. This was an escape route, for them, not her. As the days passed, the house became even worse. Sod gave Mira double chores. Lita and Noma mocked her openly, calling her beggar's bride. Uncle Bado barely looked at her unless he needed something done. The only moment of peace Mira found were the few minutes she spent at the village stream washing clothes. There, surrounded by water and trees, she could breathe. But even there, gossip followed. One of the market women approached her. So it's true. You're marrying that poor man. Ihaya, Mira. Such a fine girl suffering like this. Another added, maybe God wants to humble you. Or maybe this is your destiny. Mira forced a smile, but inside, her heart crumbled. Destiny. This. Marrying a man everyone believed was useless. But beneath the fear, beneath the shame, beneath the exhaustion, something else was growing. Curiosity. Who was this man really? Why did he walk around quietly like he was studying people? Why did his eyes look too sharp to belong to a beggar? 3 days before the wedding, something strange happened. Mira was carrying firewood behind the compound when she heard a soft voice behind her. Mira. She froze. It was him. Jidena. He stood a few steps away, still dusty, still holding his stick, but with a gentleness she had never seen before. I wanted to speak with you, he said. Myra's heart raced. Why me? She whispered before she could stop herself. Jidena studied her quietly, then said in a calm voice. Because you are the one person in this village who still knows how to see people. Her breath hitched. But before she could respond, Aunt Soda's voice blasted from the compound. Mira. If you don't come back here now, I will deal with you. Mira stepped back suddenly, panic rising. Jidena nodded calmly, almost like he understood her fear. We will talk again, he said softly. She didn't reply. She couldn't. She ran back into the compound, her heart pounding, not from fear, but from something she didn't understand yet. Something pulling her toward the very man everyone said she should run from. The night before the wedding felt heavier than all the nights Mira had lived in Uncle Bato's house. The house was quiet, but her heart was loud. She lay on her thin mat, staring at the old zinc roof above her head. The moonlight slipped through the tiny holes, making little white dots on the floor beside her. She tried to sleep, but her eyes refused to close. How could she sleep? In just a few hours, she would become the wife of a man she barely knew. A man the village called poor. A man everyone laughed at. A man who walked like he had no strength left in his bones. But her mind kept going back to the way he had said her name. Because you are the one person who knows how to see people. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not in her uncle's house. Not in the village. Not in her whole life. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he said that to make her come. But something about his voice felt sure. Something about his eyes felt true. As she turned on her mat again, she heard soft footsteps outside. The footsteps stopped near her door. Mira. She sat up quickly. It was him. Jidenna. She stepped outside quietly so the others wouldn't wake up. The night breeze was cool, carrying the smell of earth and dry wood. Jidenna stood close to the wall of the house, holding his wooden stick, his hat pushed low on his head. You shouldn't be here, Mira whispered. If Uncle sees you, he will shout. He nodded calmly. I know. I will not stay long. She looked around nervously. Why did you come? He breathed in slowly. Because after tomorrow, things will change for you. I needed to talk to you before that happens. Change, she whispered. How? He looked at her for a long moment, his eyes deep and calm. Mira, the life you think you are entering is not the life you will live. She frowned. I don't understand. You will, he said softly. Soon. She shook her head, confused and frustrated. Everyone says you are poor. Everyone says you are suffering. Why do you talk like someone who knows more than all of them? His lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. Because people believe what they choose to see. What does that mean? But instead of answering, he stepped back. I want you to know something before tomorrow, he said. I will never hurt you. I will never shout at you. And I will never force anything you don't want. Her chest tightened. She wasn't used to kindness. She wasn't used to being seen. He bowed his head. Good night, Mira. And before she could speak again, he turned and slowly walked away into the darkness, limping the way the whole village believed he always did. But tonight, Mira noticed something strange. For a few seconds, before he reached the pathway, the limp faded. It was small. Almost unnoticeable. But she saw it. And it made her heart beat even faster. The next morning, the sky was dull. Even the birds sounded tired. Aunt Sod burst into Mira's room without knocking. Wake up. Dress up. Today is the wedding day. Don't let us say you brought shame to this family. Mira sat up slowly. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking. She washed her face with cold water and wore the old lace gown Sod had given her. The gown was torn on one side and too big on the other. It made her look like she was wearing someone else's clothes. She stood in the small cracked mirror. No jewelry. No makeup. No smile. This was how her story was supposed to start. Or so she thought. When she stepped into the sitting room, the pastor was already waiting, tired, in a rush, flipping through his Bible to finish quickly. Uncle Bado sat proudly in the center like he had done something great. Aunt Sod sat beside him pretending to be calm. Lita and Noma stood behind them, whispering and laughing quietly. Then the door opened. And Jidenna walked in. Everyone turned to look at him. He still looked like the same poor man they mocked. Same old shirt. Same walking stick. Same dusty slippers. But today, Mira saw what she hadn't seen before. His back was straighter. His shoulders were firm. His eyes were clear and focused. This was not a broken man. This was someone pretending to be one. The pastor cleared his throat. Let us begin quickly. Do you, Jidenna, take Mira as your wife? Jidena looked at her gently, deeply. I do. Myra's heart fluttered. And you, Myra, the pastor asked, do you take Jidena as your husband? She looked at her uncle. His eyes were hard, forcing her. She looked at her aunt. Her face was cold, waiting. She looked at her cousins. Their smirks were wide. Then she looked at the only person who wasn't judging her. Jidena. And she whispered, barely audible. I do. The pastor closed the Bible fast. I pronounce you husband and wife. You may go. No clapping. No singing. No celebration. Just silence. Uncle Bado waved his hand dismissively. You people can go now. Take her and leave. Myra followed Jidena out of the compound. Her feet felt strange. Light. Scared. But also, curious. She expected him to lead her through the bush path. Instead, he stopped beside the road. We will not walk, he said calmly. Our car is waiting. Myra blinked. Our car. A black SUV rolled to a stop in front of them. A driver stepped out quickly. Good morning, sir, he greeted Jidena. Ma'am. Myra froze. Her mind stopped working. Sir. Ma'am. Driver. Car. Jidena turned to her with a small smile. Myra, he said softly, your life is not ending. It is just beginning. They stepped into the SUV. The seats were soft. The air inside was cool. Everything felt unreal. Myra turned to him, her voice shaking. Who are you? Jidena looked at her, calm, steady, unafraid. My name, he said quietly, is still Jidena. But the man you married today is not the poor man your uncle told you about. He leaned back slowly. He didn't reveal everything yet. But the first wall of lies had broken. And Myra's heart knew. This marriage, this man, this story, was nothing like she had been forced to believe. The SUV moved smoothly along the dusty road, leaving the village far behind. Yet Myra's mind was still standing in the middle of Uncle Bato's compound, trying to understand what just happened. She sat stiffly in her seat, hands folded tightly on her lap. Her legs were trembling, though she tried to hide it. A driver. A car. A man the driver called sir. A man who walked like a poor beggar only yesterday. Nothing made sense. She finally gathered courage. Jidena, she whispered. Please tell me the truth. He turned to her, calm as always. I will, he said. Everything. The driver slowed the car as they approached a long, smooth tarred road, nothing like the rough paths near the village. Palms lined both sides. Big houses stood far apart, behind fences and tall gates. Myra had never seen this side of the town. Her voice cracked. Where are we going? To your new home, he said simply. My home. Her voice was barely sound. Yes, he said. Her chest tightened. This isn't right, she whispered. You can't be poor and live here. You can't be a beggar and have a driver. You can't. She stopped talking. Her mind was racing faster than her mouth. Who are you? She whispered again. Please, tell me. Jidena exhaled slowly. Myra, let me show you instead. 10 minutes later, the SUV drove through two massive iron gates. Security men stood on both sides, pressing buttons that made the gates slide open smoothly. Myra's eyes widened so much they almost hurt. Inside the gate was not a house. It was a mansion. Long walls. Glass windows that touched the floor. A fountain in the center of the compound. Neatly trimmed flowers. Clean tiles that shone under the sun. Nothing in her life had prepared her for this. Not her parents' old hut. Not Uncle Bartol's cracked compound. Not the village square. Not even her dreams. The SUV stopped gently at the entrance. The door opened. A man in a black suit bowed slightly and said, "Welcome home, sir." "Madam, welcome." Mira froze. Madam. That was not a name she ever expected to hear in her entire life. She stepped out slowly, her legs weak. The gown and sword forced her to wear looked like an insult in front of this beautiful place. Jidenna came to her side, steady and calm. Mira turned to him again, shaking. "Jidenna," she said. "Tell me who you really are." He looked at her, the quiet breeze blowing softly around them, and then he spoke. "My full name is Jidenna Obis." The name echoed in her head. It sounded familiar. Too familiar. "Obis," she whispered. "The transport company, the factories." He nodded. "Yes." Her mouth fell open. You own them." "Yes." Mira stepped back as if her body needed space to understand what her ears just heard. "You're rich," she whispered. "I am," he said simply. "No," she shook her head slowly. "Not small rich. Big rich. The kind people talk about in the markets." "Yes, Mira." She held her head with both hands. "Then why did you walk around as a beggar? Why pretend? Why lie to everyone? Why choose me?" Her voice broke. "Why me, Jidenna?" Jidenna breathed in deeply. "Because I needed to know who would see me when the world saw nothing." She blinked fast, tears rising. "I don't understand." "Mira," he said softly, "in your uncle's house, everyone treated me like a non-human. But you didn't." "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "You did," he said firmly. "More than you know." He stepped closer. "You gave me water when others laughed. You greeted me without fear. You didn't insult me. You didn't act like I was dirt. You looked at me like a person." Myra's chest tightened painfully. "And that is why I chose you," he said. She looked away, tears falling. "You chose me because everyone else treated you badly." "No," he said gently. "I chose you because you were kind when you had nothing. Kindness is rare, Mira. Very rare." A tear dropped down her cheek. "But my uncle," she whispered. "He forced this marriage on me." "You agreed." "Why?" Jidenna's face grew serious. "I didn't agree to force you. I agreed because your uncle was going to throw you out. I wanted to give you a choice." "A choice," she whispered bitterly. "What choice did I have?" "The choice to stay or to leave," he said. "If, after the wedding, you told me you did not want this marriage, I would have let you go. Safely. With dignity." She stared at him. "Are you telling the truth?" she whispered. "Yes." Mira wiped her face. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Because," he said slowly, "I needed to know what was in your heart. Not what you would say if you saw money." She swallowed hard. "So you were testing me?" "Yes," he said honestly. Her tears came stronger. Not from pain, but from confusion, relief, shock, disbelief, all mixed like fire and water. "Do you hate me?" he asked quietly. Mira shook her head quickly. "No. I don't hate you. I just..." She looked around at the mansion. At the flowers. At the guards. At the glittering walls. At the fountain. "I don't understand how my life changed in one day." Jidenna stepped closer and spoke gently. "Mira, your life didn't change today. It changed the day you chose to stay kind in a world that was cruel to you." Her eyes widened. His voice was calm, but the words carried weight. He looked toward the mansion. "Come inside," he said softly. "There is more I need to show you." As they walked toward the entrance, a sharp pain hit Myra's chest. Not fear this time. Fear of going back. Fear of facing her uncle. Fear of showing them she was not the failure they thought she was. She stopped walking. "What is it?" Jidena asked. Myra turned to him, tears drying on her cheeks. "I want to go back," she whispered. He blinked. "Now?" "Yes," her voice trembled. "I want them to see. I want them to know. I want them to understand that what they threw away, God lifted." Jidena studied her for a moment. Then he nodded. "As you wish." Myra took a deep breath, not as the weak girl from Uncle Bartol's house, but as a woman standing in her truth. And together, they turned back toward the car, ready for the confrontation the village never expected. The SUV rolled slowly back toward the village. The air inside the car was quiet, but Myra's heart was loud. Every corner of the road reminded her of the insults, the chores, the hunger, the long days she felt invisible. Now she was going back, not as the poor orphan girl they controlled, mocked, and used, but as a woman with a new name, a new life, and a new truth. She looked through the window at the passing trees. "Are you sure you want to do this now?" Jidena asked gently. Myra nodded, holding her hands together. "Yes. If I don't go now, the fear will stay inside me forever." He said nothing after that. He understood. When the SUV entered the village, children ran after it, shouting, "Car! Car! See big motor. Who is that inside?" Women paused in front of their stalls. Men stepped into the road to watch. Faces moved closer. Whispers grew louder. "Is that not Myra? It cannot be. Who is the man with her? This one looks rich." Oh. The SUV stopped directly in front of Uncle Bartol's gate. Myra's breath shook. Her entire life had happened behind that gate. The door opened. Jidena stepped out first. His presence alone silenced the whole street. He didn't limp. He didn't bend. He stood tall, steady, and powerful. Gasps spread through the crowd. "That is the beggar." "No. See him now." Was he pretending all along? Then Myra stepped out. The world went still. She wasn't wearing gold. She wasn't wearing makeup. But she stood with quiet strength, the kind that grows in people who survive storms. Her old cousins, Lita and Noma, peeked from behind the doorway, eyes wide. Aunt Sod came out with a broom, confused. Uncle Bado stepped outside last. When he saw the car, the guards inside, the clothes, the man standing beside Myra, his face drained of blood. It was like he was seeing a ghost of the future he thought she would never have. The gate creaked open wider, and more villagers gathered. Jidena nodded to his driver, who brought a small brown box from the trunk. Jidena carried it himself and walked toward Uncle Bado. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. Bado swallowed hard. Good afternoon, sir." "Sir." A title he had never used for Jidena before. Jidena handed him the box. "This is something you should have seen many years ago." Bado slowly opened the box. Inside were documents, old papers that Myra couldn't see clearly. Bado's face changed instantly. His hands began to shake. "These," he whispered. "These are the truth," Jidena finished. "The truth about what you did to my father. The land you sold twice. The signatures you forged. The reason he died with shame." A loud gasp swept through the villagers. Myra's eyes widened. She had never heard this part before. Not the full story. Aunt Sod dropped the broom. Noma covered her mouth. Lita stepped back into the house like she wanted to disappear. Bado fell to his knees. "Myra. I can explain." She stepped forward slowly. No, she said softly. You will explain nothing. Her voice was calm. Steady. Like she wasn't shaking inside. You lied about me. You insulted me. You made me feel worthless. But worst of all, you hurt people who trusted you. You stole from a man who respected you. Bado bowed his head. Mira, please. She raised her hand. He fell silent immediately. Despite everything. Despite the pain. Myra's eyes softened. I did not come here to fight, she said. I came because I needed to see your face when God turned my story around. Silence. Even the wind stopped moving. She looked at him gently. I forgive you. I forgive all of you. And Sod covered her face and began to cry softly. Lita and Noma blinked fast, ashamed, speechless. But listen well, Mira continued. Do not treat another child the way you treated me. Not even a stranger. Her voice did not shake. Not today. She reached into her bag and brought out a small envelope. Use this to fix the roof, she said. And buy food. Bado stared at her in disbelief. You are giving us money. Mira nodded. Because kindness is stronger than anger. I will not carry hatred. I will not let what you did to me turn me into you. A murmur spread through the villagers. Someone whispered. This girl, her heart is pure. Another said. This is victory. Jidena stepped beside her. Have you said all you wanted to say? He asked. Mira breathed deeply. Yes. I am free now. As they turned to enter the car, a voice called out from behind. Mira. It was Noma. She stepped forward slowly, eyes full of guilt. I am sorry, she said, voice shaking. For everything. For the names. For the insults. For laughing at you when you cried. Her lips trembled. We didn't know who you would become. Mira looked at her softly. You didn't need to know who I would become. You just needed to treat me like a human. Noma broke into tears. The villagers watched, stunned. Mira touched her arm gently. You can start again. Be better. She nodded fast, sobbing. Yes. Yes. I will try. Mira smiled for the first time that day. Then she entered the SUV with Jidena. As the car drove away, the entire village stood frozen. They watched the dust rise behind the big car. They watched the girl they once called useless sit beside a man more powerful than anyone knew. They watched the past leave the village on 4 wheels. And they whispered. She was never cursed. She was chosen. On the way back home, Mira leaned back in her seat, breathing slowly and deeply. Jidena looked at her. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. Yes. I feel lighter. You were brave, he said gently. She turned to him with grateful eyes. Thank you for taking me there. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for not hiding the truth. He smiled softly. You faced them with strength, Mira. You did that on your own. She looked down at her hands. Do you think they will hate me now? She asked quietly. Jidena shook his head. No. They will respect you. Respect born from truth lasts longer than respect born from fear. Mira nodded slowly. Then she whispered. I don't ever want to go back there again, not as the poor girl who was mistreated. If I return, I want it to be with purpose. You will return with purpose, Jidena said. And with power. Back at the mansion, the quiet greeted her like a warm hug. She walked through the wide hallway, feeling the softness of the carpet beneath her bare feet. This was her home now. Not because of money. Not because of luxury. But because for the first time in her life, she was safe. She sat beside Jidena on the balcony, both of them watching the evening sun. "Do you regret anything?" he asked softly. Mira shook her head. "No. I only regret believing the lies they told me." "And now?" he asked. She smiled, small, gentle, but real. "Now I know my worth." Mira sat on the balcony that evening, watching the sky turn soft orange. Birds flew slowly across the horizon, as if the whole world had finally become quiet enough to rest. Jidena stepped out and sat beside her, placing 2 warm cups of tea on the small table. "You've been quiet," he said gently. She nodded. "I've been thinking. About the village. About everything." He waited silently. He always did. He never pushed, never forced. Mira admired that about him. Finally, she spoke. "I used to think my life was a mistake," she said. "I thought losing my parents meant God had forgotten me. I thought being treated badly meant I deserved it." Her voice shook slightly, but she did not hide it. "I thought suffering was my destiny." Jidena listened with full attention, his eyes soft. "But today," Mira continued, "I realized something important. I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because I refused to become like the people who hurt me." She took a slow breath. "I kept my heart clean even when my life was dirty." A small tear rolled down her cheek, but she smiled as she wiped it. "And that is why I was lifted." Jidena gently placed his hand over hers. "Mira, your story is not lucky. Your story is the story of a seed." She looked at him, confused. "A seed grows underground first," he explained. "Where it is dark. Where no one sees it. Where it looks like nothing is happening. But inside, something powerful is building." He squeezed her hand lightly. "You were in the dark, Mira. But you were growing." She lowered her eyes, letting the words fill her slowly, deeply. "For so long," she whispered, "I believed I was nothing." "That's because they taught you to believe that," Jidena said calmly. "But they never had the power to define your destiny." She nodded gently. And then she said something even she did not expect. "I want to help other girls like me. Girls who think their story is over." Jidena smiled. "You already have," he said. "But if this is your calling, I will support you in every way." She turned to him, amazed. "You mean that?" "With all my heart." 1 month later, news spread across 3 villages. Mira Foundation for Girls is opening. The poor orphan girl is helping others now. She is lifting girls who thought they had no hope. People talked. People wondered. But everyone admired her. Her story became a lesson whispered in marketplaces, told to children at night, shared among women who had suffered silently. Be kind. You never know who is watching. Do not mistreat others because you think they are weak. A person can look poor but still be a king. A girl can look helpless but still be chosen. Mira visited the new training center almost every day. She helped young girls sew, learn to bake, read, and dream. She sat with widows and listened to their stories. She gave hope to women who had never known comfort. Every smile she saw reminded her. Kindness is a seed that always grows. One afternoon, she stood in front of the center, watching the girls laugh as they practiced sewing. Jidena walked up behind her. "You've changed lives," he said softly. "And so have you," she replied. He shook his head. "No. You changed me. You reminded me that goodness still exists." They stood quietly for a moment. Then Mira turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." She looked up at him and asked the question her heart had carried from the beginning. "Why me?" He smiled warmly. "Because, Mira, in a world full of people who look with their eyes, you were the one who looked with your heart." She swallowed, touched by his words. And what about the people who broke me? She asked softly. He looked into her eyes and said, Look at where you are now. If they had not pushed you down, you would not have risen this high. Her eyes widened. Sometimes, he continued, the people who hurt us are the same people God uses to redirect our lives. Mira breathed in slowly, letting that truth settle inside her. Then I am grateful, she whispered. Not for the pain, but for the journey. He smiled. That is wisdom. As the sun began to set, Mira stepped into the training center. She paused and looked at the audience. And she spoke, as if speaking to anyone in the audience who had ever felt broken, unloved, or forgotten. Your story is not over. You are not cursed. You are not worthless. You are a seed waiting for your moment to grow. Be kind. Be patient. And when life pushes you down, rise. She smiled gently. Then she walked forward into her new life. A life she created from pain, courage, and kindness.
Thanks for watching this story all the way to the end. You're amazing for staying with us. If you enjoyed this video, don't stop here. We've got plenty more stories just like this one waiting for you. Simply click on one of the videos popping up on your screen right now and keep the journey going. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next upload. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep the stories alive.